everyone. Greetings. Welcome to another episode of Brown Girls Are Beautiful. I am your hostess and your melanated queen. Um, Hopefully, y'all been having a good weekend. It's been very busy for me, y'all. It's crazy out here. Still haven't washed my hair. I just got back not too long ago. I don't know what y'all have been doing, but I know that I have been freaking on the go. So anyway, I wanted to go ahead and do my little Sunday rendezvous session because I haven't done this in a while. So I said, why not start getting back into the habit of doing my Sunday rendezvous? You know, one thing I was doing is my F Your Feelings Friday, which we did have that session as well. Let me see, make sure. Okay, making sure I can hear myself, y'all. Today's today's topic, Sunday service is in session, and we're going to talk about it. Now, before I get into it, this is not to disparage anybody from their beliefs. This is not to disparage anybody from their faith, all right? Because you don't have to be here at all. These are just my thoughts, my views, my opinions of what I have observed, all right, over the course of time in my days of life living on this earth. Now, I think it's so important that we all have an understanding of, the lies that are fed to us. We need to definitely pay attention to the narratives that are portrayed in the media to us as far as our faith, our beliefs, and things as such. With that being said, y'all, um, I think we should all join hands and bow our heads for just a second in unity, y'all. So let's gather here today. Let's join our hands, bow our heads, and give thanks together to the universe, spirits, angels, and ancestors that has gathered here, that has gathered us here today. Um, let's go ahead and give thanks to our spirits, our angels, and our ancestors. You know, we got to be thankful for the little things in life that we take for granted, being able to see, hear, being in our, right minds and of sound body, mind, body, spirit, and soul, having just the necessities that we need: food, shelter, water, y'all. Some people don't even have these things. And so I say, thank you for those things. Thank you for our family members that are still walking amongst us. You know, we just have to do that, y'all. The more grateful we are, sometimes you just never know. You get more blessed, all right? Because what I noticed in today's world is that people get so caught up in their entitlement, and so I want to talk about these things, y'all. All right, can I get an amen? All right. All right. So let me go ahead and click on this live stream so I can see church service and session Sunday rendezvous. What I want to talk about with this church session is the fact that there are so many churches around, and what I notice is that I don't see a major change in the communities in which they serve, if they do serve the community, because I am one to believe that a lot of churches are self serving. We talked about this last night on the live stream. A lot of these churches are self serving. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is the bigger the church, the bigger the tithes, the bigger the dramatics of that church. And I didn't know what that meant when I was younger, but now I do know, because you can have these mega churches out here, and a lot of times they're asking you to do what? Give tithes, pay your 10%. But what are they giving back to the community? Right? And I'm not just talking about just, okay, holiday time. We're collecting canned goods. We're taking up plates. We are giving out turkeys. We are, doing something for Christmas time. We're giving out toys for the children, because in all actuality, people need a real change in life. People need an absolute change in their environment, y'all. What is the church doing to build the community? When I say build the community, I mean really building. For all the money that goes on out here that's circulating in these churches, where are the education, the schools out here? Where are the after school programs for these children? Where are community centers being built? I want to know, where are hospitals where people can get medical care? Where are the banks being built for melanated people? Where are jobs being circulated? And one thing that I will say that I've noticed about church is that people are very judgmental in the church. So they always say, "Oh, come as you are, we welcome all." But is that really true? Because, y'all, some of the biggest sinners are in the church. Some of the biggest hypocrites are in the church. Yes, they are. A lot of antics takes place in those churches. You have pastors messing with women of the church. You have church members messing with each other's husbands and wives. This goes on all the time, and they try to keep it secret and they try to keep it hidden. So, if we're talking about church and we really have faith and you really want to walk like, you claim that you're walking, then why is it that in these communities we're not seeing more being built in the community for the public, for the people that really need it? I don't think there should be anybody that's going to these churches that should be financially struggling, honestly, with all the money that they take up, with all the collection plates that they pass around 3 times during a service, y'all. And I've seen this with my own eyes. And then they have special things that they take up for. So I remember when we went to church, they had something called the sick and shut in list, right? And then they would ask the churchgoers to take up an offering for people that may have been sick or shut in. Basically, these people might have been in the hospital or they're not doing well. And I feel like that's, a very appropriate measure to take. But I also feel that with all these churches that are being built around these communities, I'm not seeing much of a change going on. I don't think that we should have to wait on the government to give us a lot of things, even though, yes, we are all taxpayers. All, the money that we make that come from our checks, the taxes that we have to pay, the income taxes, goes into this country, but we don't get to delegate where these funds are spent. But in the church, I feel like the church goers and church members should be able to delegate where these funds are spent. And they always like to say, "Oh, this keeps the lights on. Oh, this pays the bills," right? These are 501(c)s. They're nonprofit organizations. We already know that most of the pastors drive, they live a really nice lifestyle. The first lady dresses very nice. The pastor dresses very nice. They're wearing suits, coming dressed appropriately and respectfully for the church. I get that, right? But what about the people in that congregation that are probably struggling and holding on to a hope of faith because you told them that if they keep praying and keep tithing and keep giving, that their blessings are coming, and you don't even understand the struggle that they're going through, and they're hoping, they're wishing, they're praying, they're pouring all of their hope into this faith, into this church, because somebody somewhere told them that if they just hold on a little bit longer, if they just keep on being a little bit stronger, that one day they're going to get this breakthrough. And they get on their knees at night and they pray down to this Jesus that you told them that was going to come and rescue them, right? But what happens when these people are not rescued? Does anybody have any answers for this? Oh, I know what they're going to say. Oh, just hold on a little bit longer. Just keep on praying. Oh, you just got to keep on. Right? But sometimes people get weary. Sometimes they might not have anybody to fall back on. There are women out here with children that are single. There are women out here that are trying to get away from abusive situations. There are people out here dealing with a bunch of emotional stress. People out here are dealing with physical ailments, you all. And while people and the church and the pastor is telling them to keep saying amen, keep clapping your hands, these people's situations are getting more and more dire by the moment. And they're trying to pay their tithes and they're trying to hold on. Where is the safety net for these people? Who's there to rescue them? And that's why I say, if this church really built a structure for the people, then there would be no need for anybody in that church to be suffering financially, falling on hard times, because you would have built a community. You would have built businesses. You would have built a way to be able to employ people so that they don't have to fall on hard times, so they don't have to be, feeling hopeless and going to church crying in tears, because we don't know what people are going through out here. And people are playing on these people's vulnerabilities, especially the females out here. The females are the most vulnerable because they're the ones that go into these churches and keep these churches going the most. They're bringing their children in these churches. They're telling their little boys that might not have a father, you need to go to church. You need to be in church with me. But is that the only thing that boy needs? He needs more than just to be told about Jesus. He actually needs a real life male mentor in his life, right? He needs an outlet. He needs a lot of support outside of just going to church, y'all. And although, yes, it could teach people to never give up and to be diligent and to have faith and to have hope, but we need to have action along with this stuff, right? There needs to be action. And I think far too long, the pastors of these churches, the bishops of these churches keeps playing those same cards, putting that same narrative into the church. Oh, just hold on, just keep your faith, just keep praying, just keep wishing, just keep hoping. And then they're going to break out with a church dance and a song, right? They're going to play that piano, they're going to play that organ, they're going to play the tambourines, they're going to shana na 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 na, right? Speaking in tongues, they're going to all over the church. When does the shenanigans cease, right? When do all the dramatics stop? Because you feel good for a moment, right? And I really feel like some of this is taught. I really do. I mean, how many times have you gone to church and seen these same antics play out? People need to really be taught to tap into themselves and work the magic that's within them, because whether you believe it or not, there is a such thing as being connected to this universe, going within your divine self and tapping into your inner powers. The church is designed to keep you stagnated and to keep you focused on everything outside of yourself, even worshiping a deity that's outside of you instead of tapping into who you are. You are divine beings. You are made in the image of your creator. And if you don't believe that you're divine and made in the image of your creator, and if you have the powers of your divine creator, you have the divinity to create as well. So it is most important, right? Because the pastors are not going to tell you this, to tap into you, tap into who you are, and go within your inner self and tap into your inner strength. Sometimes that voice that you hear in your head, something told me to do this, something told me to do that, is your higher self. People say, oh, God was talking to me. There is a God within you. Okay. God told me to do this. God was speaking to me. God, well, you know what? Here's the thing about it. If people went around saying, I hear voices in my head, what do they call these people? They call them schizophrenic, right? They have a mental illness. So now, because it comes from in the form of church, and you're saying that you heard a voice and you said it was God, does that make it okay? But if a schizophrenic person said they heard voices in their head, what makes that any difference? So now it's a hypocrisy situation going on. And I noticed that you said no gods, no masters. A lot of people get offended when you start talking about your inner divinity. A lot of people get offended when you try to actually free their minds from the shackles that have been placed upon them. They get mad and they're going to fight you. I had someone in my comment section earlier that posted a comment, and I'm not trying to go in on her, but I'm going to read this comment to you if I can find it. Okay. Because what I said in one of my shorts that she watched, I said that you can come up out of believing in their Christianity and their religion. You said, speak that truth. Oh, thank you. Pretty though. Yes, I'm not saying there are masters out here. I'm not saying that there are masters. What I'm saying is that a lot of us need to tap into our higher selves, that inner voice within us, the power that is exuberant within ourselves. Thank you, Priscilla Grimes. You said, speak that truth. Okay. Thank you so much, lady. So, lady love. So, right here, this is my short video. And I was just talking and I was saying, shout out to all my melanated people. I'm going to try to find it on this video real quick for y'all. And then I'm going to play it because it's not to be offensive. But what I find is that a lot of our people need to be mentally freed from these shackles, okay? Because that is when you are really going to be more powerful in your life. When you start walking in your higher being and your higher self. So this particular short says, never let the oppressor tell you who you are. And I'm going to play that for you in just a second, y'all. Let me share my screen for just a moment. Okay, never let the oppressor tell you who you are. And people got offended by this. Tonight, I just got to give a shout out to all my melanated people that have joined us in the building. Okay, don't let the oppressor ever tell you who you are, right? Always know that you're a divine being, walking in the image of your divine, made in the image of your divine creator. Honor your ancestors, venerate the people that actually were here with you, that knew you, right? You don't have to follow their white Jesus, y'all. You don't have to follow their white sky daddy on a cloud, y'all. You don't have to follow their white Christian religion, all in the name of racism, because Christianity, as we've just discovered, right, as we've been listening here, is stemmed in racism, because Charlie Kirk was a devout Christian, allegedly, right? And what did Charlie Kirk say about melanated people? He said that melanated women didn't have brain processing power. And as a matter of fact, as we sit here and speak tonight, I just got to give a shout out to all my melanated people that have joined us in the building. Okay. Don't let the oppressor ever tell you who you are, right? Always know that you're a divine being, walking in the image of your divine, made in the image of your divine. Right, I'm going to stop right there, y'all. I had to walk off for a second and close these curtains. Hold on 1 second, y'all. 1 second. Had to close the curtains, y'all. It started to get dark and I had to close those up. But yeah, so I had a comment on that video that I was playing on for y'all, and the comment said, let me see here. How, okay, so somebody said, I'm going to share my screen so y'all can see it for yourselves. All right, here, now you'll be able to see it. It says, how is Christianity a white religion? All right. And so she probably doesn't realize. And somebody, this idiot right here that's been trolling my YouTube account all of a sudden, ever since the Charlie Kirk thing and the hit dogs were hollering, this person has been following my channel, 70 IQ races, right? That's not being racist for me speaking my truth. I'm not being racist because I didn't say anything racist. All I said was we don't have to follow their white Jesus and their white religion. But notice how these people claim to be Christian and they claim to be so religious, but they get so defensive and nasty, right? But anyway, I said typical rhetoric from an idiotic moron like you. But let me get back to this person right here. How is Christianity a white religion? So if you all remember that we have been exploring Ashra Kwesi, Dr. Phil Valentine, and even going back to Egypt and then reading the book Stolen Legacy. So I said, how is it not? Question mark. Have you done your research? I'd highly suggest you study and do your research. This is what I've been speaking about on the channel. A book you may want to consider is Stolen Legacy by George James. You can watch the videos by Ashra Kwesi and Dr. Phil Valentine, who also study religious history. There is too much information and sources out there for you not to understand the foundation of Christianity, which was forced upon melanated people through slavery. The premise of the religious practices were stolen from Africa, remixed, and given back to the people. All right. And so that's why I find that this is very important information to share, because we have been indoctrinated so long unknowingly, right? Because this happens from the time that you're a child, because it was passed down from generation to generation. But you said you don't know about that. Churches to get you closer to God. Some use it for their own benefit. Fair enough, but stay true to God. And I do agree with all have divine, and we can tap into it anytime. And that's fine for you. But what I know, TK, is that people take advantage of people in churches. I'm not saying all, but I do think sometimes if you free yourself from religious doctrine and you can free your mind, it makes you a little bit more liberated, you know. But everybody has a right to believe in what they want to believe in. Everybody has a right to have faith in what they want to have faith in because this has already been introduced and implemented into society. It's only for the people that want to see a different way or a different side to their lives. And I had to come to my own conclusion. You know, it's not for everybody. And I'm not forcing this on anybody to believe how I believe or, you know, to walk how I walk. I'm just saying that you don't have to feel that you have to go along with something just because it was introduced to you. There are other things to explore out here. There are a lot of different ways to research stuff to get better truth on what has been introduced. And you said, because praise of God is what God deserves. We were made to worship, be God centric, not self centric. No man can live up to God's law. Only through God are we saved. Bacon flavored stream, I definitely hear what you're saying. And I definitely think that you really believe that. And, you know, that's good for you. You said, I pray the blood of Jesus covers you all, for what you are speaking is blasphemous to the Holy Spirit. So it, like I said, it's rhetoric like this that can be very dangerous because what you're doing is you're trying to speak a curse over me, which I rebuke. Okay. Because when you say the blood of Jesus, right, you got to think about that. When people do things as far as sacrificing, there is a such thing as satanic sacrifices, right? And you're talking about blood sacrifices. You're talking about the blood covering me. Exactly why do you want blood to cover someone? And I'm just saying, think logically when you say these things. Don't think about it from this quote unquote holy thing that has been taught to you or indoctrinated your mind. Think about it from a perspective of, if you didn't know anything about this and somebody said they wanted to cover you with blood, what's the first thing that you would think? But because they cover it up and put Jesus on it and say that it's holy, now you accept it. That's all I'm saying. So I'm just speaking with a logical mindset. And I don't think that I'm going to be punished for speaking what I'm saying. So I would respectfully appreciate if you do not speak curses over me, okay? Because I do rebuke that. You said, but do have Christ. Okay. And if that's fine, if that's what you tend to believe. You said Jesus wasn't white. Christianity is not white. Okay. And that's fine if that's what you choose to believe. See, I'm being respectful because I know a lot of times people cannot accept anything different than what they have been, you know, told or indoctrinated into. So this conversation is really open for people that have an open mind. It's not really for closed-minded people. Because if you have a closed-minded perspective, you're not going to be able to receive information from a different perspective. All right. And so this is something that I've been thinking about for many years, you know, of my life. And I've come to my own conclusion. And I'm just sharing my personal experience. You don't have to embrace it the same way I don't have to embrace, you know, being covered in the blood of someone that was told to me by other people. I don't really have to accept that. You said, free yourself from religious doctrine, question mark. You are preaching the elevation of self over God. That's ignorant. And now you are judging. And what does the Bible say about judging? See, this is what happens when, quote unquote, people that believe in the Bible start, you know, quoting scripture over other people. So you're not even supposed to be judging, right? You're calling me ignorant, or you're saying that's ignorant. Never once did I say that you were ignorant, but it's these same people that, you know, speak of the Bible, speak of their faith, speak of their religion, speak of Jesus, that do the exact opposite of what the Bible teaches. You said it's only one way to God. Be careful when you use the blood of Jesus. Yeah, so you got to be careful with that type of stuff. I don't actually subscribe to that type of stuff. There's a such thing as witchcraft and sorcery in church as well, and you know there's magic within all of us. There's magic in this universe, and one preacher that I do like is, I think his name is Ike or something like that, Reverend Ike. I don't know if y'all remember him, but I like him because he talks about a lot of this from like a metaphysical perspective. And yes, Dr. Reverend Ike, that's who it is, Dr. Reverend Ike. I was listening to some of his videos over the course of the last couple of years, and I like how he empowers you through the word. And it makes more sense that way, because I think a lot of times what people do is they take the you out of it and they put everything on Jesus, or everything on a Holy Spirit, or everything on a God, or everything on what something else outside of you. When you do that, you make yourself, in my opinion, less powerful. But if you operate within within these things altogether, then you can have something even more powerful. But if you just say, oh, I'm just going to give it all to Jesus, and that's perfectly fine if that's what you want to do. But I just feel that sometimes you give yourself greater power when you know that you have whatever you believe in working with you, whatever you believe in operating over you, and you are working with that energy. Okay, because everything is spiritual energy. You said you don't believe in Jesus, question mark, bacon flavored stream. Bacon flavored stream, I don't feel um I'm trying to be real careful how I answer your question, because I'm being respectful, but I don't feel obligated to tell you my belief system, or to tell you whether I believe in Jesus or not, because the first thing that people like you try to do is you're judgmental. So if I have a different belief system than you, then the first thing I know that you're going to do is judge, right? And that's not what I'm over here to do. This channel is not about judgment. This channel is really speaking from a different perspective. And that's what I'm doing. I'm speaking from my perspective. So it's not for everybody to come over here and agree with me. A lot of you are not going to agree, right? And I don't expect for you to do that. But I have a more free mindset that is not operating in Christianity that's been fed to me by way of somebody else's indoctrination system. So that is just my take on it. Maybe that's not your take, and that's fine. Now, you can sit there and say that I'm going to be judged, and that's your opinion, and you can have that opinion. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I think of you. I mean, I'm just going to leave that between you and whoever you believe in. All right. You said my is Apostle Geno Jennings. Yeah, he's very interesting too, Priscilla. Come back to Bible. Everything you need is in Christ Jesus. I promise you, be ye holy, for I am holy, saith the Lord. Okay, Priscilla, I hear you. So yeah, he's very interesting as well. But I do like Reverend Ike, and the reason I like Reverend Ike is because there's we all know about quantum physics and metaphysics, and a lot of the way that the world orchestrates and the way that it works with the universe is within the parameters of science as well. And I'm not saying everything is science based, because we do have spirituality walking amongst us. Everything that has been put into this reality is spiritual first. We wouldn't exist if it wasn't for spirituality, because we are spiritual beings in these physical bodies, right? We know this. But there are a lot of things that have been misconstrued and misinterpreted, that people don't do their research when it goes back to the history of Christianity. That's all I'm saying. So, like I was telling that other young lady that asked that question in the comment section, please do your due diligence and do your research, ladies and gentlemen. You said you love me and you're praying. All right. Well, I appreciate the love, because I do feel that I can feel the energy through the screen, Priscilla, that you're coming from a good hearted place. But I also want to tell people to be careful about who you let and allow to pray for you. I was speaking to one of my colleagues the other year, and she was the child of a pastor. And she was saying that she was in the store one day and she got to talking to some people, and they said, oh, let me pray for you. And she was like, no, thanks. She said, oh, trust me, I used to be in the church. I've seen a lot of things. If you don't know what I'm talking about, people can pray curses over your life, you all. All right. So don't think that just because people come in Christian faith or come in the name of Jesus, that all these people mean you well, because they do not. A lot of the biggest hypocrites have been found in the church. Some of the biggest devils sit on the pulpit. That's all I'm saying. So, although people feel comfort in these words, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Although people feel comfort in these deities, and there's nothing wrong with that, please be very careful with, religion, is all I'm saying, and spirituality. All right. That's all I'm saying, y'all. Now, I am going to play this video by Dr. Phil Valentine for those of you who may or may not have been introduced to Dr. Phil Valentine. He has done some digging and research into the Christian religion and the history of how it got spread. Because before, Christianity, we were not Christians. So how did we get into Christianity? It was indoctrinated upon us through slavery. So let's get into Dr. Phil Valentine. You will find that a lot of the spirituality that has been remixed and given back to us actually came from Africa, you all. The spiritual practice that we practice today comes and derives from Egypt. The spiritual practices that has been introduced to us, remixed and given back to us, are Sar and Aset, all goes back to Egypt. So this is why when people ask, oh, Christianity, what do you mean? It's not a white religion. Do your research, y'all. That's all I can tell you. So I'm going to go ahead and you said, what the D, you can go. All right. I don't have time for it. Okay. I don't have time for it today. And I'm not getting into it with y'all. I'm being very calm. And so I'm not being disrespectful to anyone. I'm going to share my screen, you all, and I'm going to play this video. Okay. All right. So everybody, this is Dr. Phil Valentine.
Weeks. I have been invested in my books to come up with information for you about Christianity. And I intend in this taping to give you as much as I can within the few hours that we have of everything that I could find, because it'll take me another 5 to 6 hours of another program to keep filling in the dots for you. But what you are going to have here is a scholastic breakdown and the historicities of what you good Christians out there have been worshiping. It is time to logistically put aside, to scholastically put aside, to intellectually put aside this farce called Christianity. Christianity is a hoax. It is time for us to delete.
Oh, hold on for 1 second, y'all. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but Just Lynn said, I'm late. I've been telling people this for years. Our people should really study. This is the problem. A lot of people have not studied this information. They haven't even been introduced to the information, so they don't know about it. So I'm just introducing it. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just sharing information. That's all I'm doing. It's up to them if they want to study it. If they want to ignore it, that's on them as well.
Our consciousness atmosphere of this presence. Now, why did I call it Vampires of Consciousness? Because that's the name of this particular tape. Vampires of Consciousness, the true historicity of the Church of Satan, Christianity. There is no Church of Satan outside of Christianity. All religion encompasses the Church of Satan. Now, why did I call it Vampires of Consciousness? Well, first, it is essential that we understand the nature of a vampire. We have to understand the nature of a vampire. One, it is a parasite by nature. Two, it feeds on the healthy, the innocent, and the unsuspecting. Three, it appears beautiful, mysterious, alluring, and powerful. Four, it sucks on the life stream of the host, depleting the life and light force until the host no longer knows who he or she is. Five, it affects and infects the host with a virus, quote unquote, until the host becomes one with the body of his redeemer, one with the consciousness of the vampire. Six, the host loses his sense of self, no longer perceiving the world and reality from a knowledge of self, but from a perception or knowledge given to him by the vampire. That is why I call this particular tape on Christianity the vampires of consciousness.
All right. Now, who do you think introduced religion to you? Do you think this was given to you by your own people, or was this given to you by the oppressor? I'm just going to ask you all that question for a moment. This is why he calls it a vampire. It's unsuspecting. They make it look beautiful. When we speak about Christmas and the fact that Christmas actually derives from a satanic holiday, people don't know about that because they haven't researched it. When I talked about Thanksgiving being the slaughtering of your ancestors, people don't know about that because they haven't researched it. Even when people partake in these holidays such as Valentine's Day, which is really about gay men and their genitalia, people don't know about that because they have not researched it. Now, when you start telling the truth and go back and dig in the history of a lot of these practices and these ritualistic things that people are practicing, either they're going to A, get offended, B, reject it, or C, open their minds up and try to do some research into why was this indoctrinated into their core belief system.
Christianity is crack for the mind and soul. It lives in ignorance. Ignorance is the mother of devotion. Let me repeat that. Ignorance is the mother of devotion. That which you are ignorant of, you worship, because you have no knowledge of what you worship. You believe in things you don't understand, and that's why you suffer. Stevie told you, superstition ain't no way. Christianity is crack for the soul. Religion is the crack pipe. You need to go and check the book Edgar Allan Poe, The Pit and the Pendulum. What is The Pit and the Pendulum about? The Pit and the Pendulum was written by Poe about a story told by a prisoner who was in the dungeon of the Spanish Inquisition. In there, they described everything that went on in the Spanish Inquisition. Now, I didn't have all of the different books. I couldn't find it. I couldn't stay in the library long enough, and I couldn't get.
Hold on, before he speaks. So, Bacon Flavored Stream, I saw your comments, and I know you really believe wholeheartedly in what you're saying, and that's fine and dandy. Also, too, why did he say that religion is the crack pipe? Because when people were in bondage, in slavery, indentured slaves, whatever you want to call them, stolen from their land, made to work in the plantation fields, what is the one thing that they allowed the slaves to do? Well, they allowed the slaves to commune together on, I think it was Sundays, and they allowed them to gather around. And, you know, if you got caught reading, you know, slaves would get beaten and punished, right? You do know that they were not allowed to be able to read, to pick up a book and read. So they would play dumb, they would play stupid. But on Sundays, they would actually allow them to read the Bible. Why do you think that is? This is how Christianity got implemented as a form of slavery. Because in that Bible, if you pay attention, when it says honor thy master, as you would basically the Father, the Son, or the Holy Ghost, that is in the book. But Dr. Phil Valentine is going to tell you that the Bible has been tampered with, okay? Because we know that this Bible that has been given to us is the King James Version. And if you haven't done your history on King James, please do your research into that as well.
To all my books, most of my books are locked away in storage. The ones that I did have, if you could see my room, I wouldn't even bring you up to my room, because my room is like it's like a paper blizzard. I sleep on my work. All right, that's how focused I become every time I want to put a particular program together. So I wanted to put together, first and foremost, the books that were banned, deleted, or rejected by the Roman Christian Church as apocryphal. Now, the word apocryphal means uninspired. Uninspired simply means that, okay, this one can get through without telling too much. Here are some of the books that were deleted from the Bible. Now, let me first say this to all you Christians out there who believe that your branch of Christianity is the one that say, oh, well, hey, that's Roman Catholicism. That's them. That's the Catholics. No, it ain't. Because the Catholics are your father and your mother. I don't give a damn what Christianity you worship. I don't give a shit what Bible you use. You are still using the text that came out of the Roman Church under Constantine and the Council of Nicaea at 325. So you can call yourself a Lutheran. You can call yourself a Methodist, Episcopalian. I don't give a shit. You are still a Christian by any other name. You are a branch on the same tree with the same roots. Now, I can only bring out 26 of the books that were deleted. And they are the Gospels of Thomas and Nicodemus, the Proto-Evangelium of James, the Gospel of the Nativity of Mary, the history of Joseph the Carpenter, the Gospel of the childhood of the Redeemer, the Gospel according to the Egyptians, the Gospel of Bartholomew, the Gospel of Judas Iscariot, the Gospel of the Recollections of Peter, the Gospel of Adam and Eve, the Gospel of Barnabas, the Gospel of Barabbas, the Book of the Nazarenes, the Gospel of the Revelations of Peter, the Gospels of the Shepherd of Hermas, the First Epistle of Clement, the Second Epistle of Clement, the Epistle to Barnabas, the Diatessaron or the Gospel of Tatian, the Gospel of the Essenes, the Revelation of Elias, the Hymn of Jupiter of Clementius, the Proverbs of Sirach, the Book of Abu Dazura, the Gospel of Enoch, and the Gospel of the Infancy of Jesus the Christ. Y'all know anything about this? Absolutely not. You heard about the Gospel of Barnabas. Well, that's one out of how many in here? Now forgive the bottom of my head or the back of my head, because I'm going to be speaking to you from all of what I have written. It's best for me to just put it down on the record for you, because I have a lot to read to you. The birth of Constantine, the father of Christianity. On the crossroads of the Balkans near a city called Naissus, Naissus, an illegitimate child was born in 274 AD to a rural barmaid who flirted freely with a Roman officer. The boy was named Constantine. He was born in the inn. This boy was ambitious. He joined the Roman military and quickly climbed up to the ranks of soldiery in the east. On the banks of the Danube River, for bravery in the battle on that Danube River, he was made a tribune. He rose to become a Caesar. He made himself an Augustus. Patience, prudence, determination, and optimism brought this son of an innkeeper to the very banks of the Tiber at the head of an army. Now, I'm writing to you based upon my own literary license. You're actually listening to how I write. All right, so it may tend to take on flair because I like to do that. I'm a Libra. I'm an artist by nature. I'm a wordologist. All right? So it's a little flavor in here, a little season. I think we're a little grown up now. We don't need, Mary ran here. Jack saw this. All right? Across the bridge from Rome was Maxentius and his army, 200,000 strong. Now you just imagine Maxentius and Constantine across the river from one another, facing off to become the next Caesar. Now, you got to remember that at the time of Constantine, Rome was about to go into the toilet anyway. And at that time, there were about 5 or 6 other thugs vying for the throne of Caesar. So there were all these little compatriots, almost like the gangs, little parts of the mafia. Whose family are you with?
All right. Now, this is a 3-hour video, and I don't want to play the entire 3-hour video. I have already listened to this a few years ago, probably like back in 2016, you all. I did my due diligence and listened to the whole thing when I was cleaning up the house. It gets really deep. Basically, a lot of these things were put into perspective and put into place for control. All right. So you can actually do your own research on that. There's a book that I'm going to pull up in just a second here. And I'm going to share this with you as well. Let me see, share screen, and let me find this book. 1 second, y'all. Hold on. It's actually called Stolen Legacy. And you can find this book in Barnes and Nobles. You can get the Kindle version too. And it shouldn't cost you no more than 99 cents. But it's by George G.M. James. George G.M. James, everybody. I'm going to try to share this book with you if I can. Hold on 1 second. Let me copy it. And I'm trying to get it so that y'all can see it as well. If it will open up for me. Let's see if it'll open up on this window for me, because I have it open in a different browser. Okay, it looks like, okay. All right, so it's only going to show the sample on this screen, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Okay, so let me go ahead and share this. Okay, this is the book right here that you can get. This actually tells you about how a lot of the stuff that the spirituality, the religion that you practice today, where this all derived from. Okay. So it was stolen. And if you really go back into history, a lot of what he was saying, the Greeks, the Romans, what they were doing is they were actually going over the border to Egypt, right? And Egypt had a lot of knowledge in their mystery systems. It was knowledge that they weren't teaching everybody, you all. And you had to actually be able to elevate to a high level to get into the knowledge of these mystery systems. I mean, when I say they had libraries of knowledge, 2 miles long worth of mystery systems they had. When the Romans and Greeks got a hold of these mystery systems, they basically pillaged a lot of that information. And what they did with it is they stole it and remixed it. And then what they did was they forbade the original mystery systems that the people practiced, and they implemented and forced them to believe in their own religious practices. So that's why I say you just got to be careful, about where you're getting your information from, and just do your own research and your own due diligence. This is not to force anybody to believe anything. I'm telling you to do your own research. That's all I'm telling you. There's a reason that a lot of people have taken time to go back and do research. I'm also going to play for you a guy by the name of Ashra Kwesi. Ashra Kwesi actually has been studying religion and religious practices for quite a while. And he takes trips, back and forth to Egypt, which he can actually show you where a lot of this information has come from as well. And like, I know there are going to be people that are going to reject the information because it's too much for them. They can't fathom the fact that they've been lied to. They don't want to hear it. They are calling this demonic, but there's nothing demonic about my ancestors. There's nothing demonic about my lineage. There's nothing demonic about the original practices of spirituality. So while you're sitting here calling it demonic and that you rebuke it in the name of Jesus, you might want to get your facts straight and stop basically defaming or being blasphemous to those who preceded us, right? Because this right here is an abomination to our ancestors when you say that you rebuke this in the name of Jesus, when this is actually where a lot of these practices derive from. So right here, you said you're going to stay quiet on this one, sis. You're doing great work. Basically, they took our powerful spirituality and gave us some empty space. Our ancestors were misled. Yes, they were. And this was intentional and it was on purpose, because they know that once we recognize the truth and we gain true knowledge, Jocelyn, that they cannot hold us down with these mental shackles and these spiritual chains. All right. So that's why I was saying that once we find our inner strength and our inner power, it's within our DNA. This goes back centuries ago, you all. We really are powerful beings. And it's not to try to pretend like I'm the God of all gods. No, it's not that. We have to be able to relate ourselves back to our spiritual ancestors. And now I'm going to play for you Ashra Kwesi. Here you can see the African holy birth on December 25th. Why do they practice the birth of, what they classify as Jesus on December 25th? I'm going to play for you this as well. Okay, so that you can get some type of inclination on where this comes from, because a lot of people don't know, and they have been practicing and studying these things for many years. Before Ashra Kwesi, there's a guy named Dr. Ben that was actually doing this research. They actually go to Africa to study this. He's taking a trip this July, coming up in 2026, where you'll be able to actually go and see a lot of this information for yourselves.
So our ancestors saw Orion was Lord of the heavens. They carved it on the temples. But why did they put it there? That's what we want to look at. They saw, as we go back to the scriptures, we're going to bring the scriptures in the court of law. Well, is it in the scriptures? Yes, it's in the scriptures. In Amos, chapter 5, verse 8, it says, "Seeketh him that maketh the 7 stars of Orion." Uh-oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seeking him that maketh the 7 stars of Orion. Well, our ancestors saw that Asar, our spiritual father, and the Zep Tepi, for our spirit to go back to him, to rise up our caress, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the constellation of Orion long before it was in Amos and the scriptures was even in existence. This is the Zep Tepi, or the first time of creation. Our ancestors saw through the constellation, through the heavenly body, through astrotheology, through the cosmos, the first divine mother and father for them to live for eternity. A set represented Sahu, called Ceres today, and Asar represented Orion. Our spiritual mother and father that we carved on the temples. Here we see the earliest story of Asar, who had an evil brother named Set. Many versions of the story, who got 72 conspirators to crucify him. Here we see this is long before the Cain and Abel story. You got it carved on the temples. And although you see it carved on the temples on the outside, still on the inside, they're still beautifully painted black. It's through this story of the union of Asar and Asar's resurrection, through the union of Asar and Aset, they have a holy child. It's told on the papyruses where the name paper came from. We see Tahuti, we did not worship animals, but Tahuti, the divine nectar, the messenger corresponding to Gabriel in the gospel, announces to the goddess Aset that she give a divine immaculate conception and virgin birth. So here you had this spiritual story where Tahuti came, who was a spiritual law, said Aset would have a holy child. This is long before Gabriel, the angel of the Lord, came through the back door and told Mary that she was going to have an immaculate conception. Now, our story was more spiritual because Tahuti gave the call, and Amen came to Asar and said that your wife Aset would have an immaculate conception. Now, I don't know about you, brother, but if your wife came to you and said an angel of the Lord in the back room came and said that she had an immaculate conception, I don't know if you go for it or not. I don't know. But that's belief. On these temples, right here, Dendera, at the temple of Het-Heru, let's go inside these temples, brothers and sisters. And going inside these temples, here we can see an ancient spiritual story where Asar, here we see his...
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we need to listen to the African proverb that says, know thyself. Because if you don't know thyself, then you can be easily misled. So I'm just going to let him continue to speak.
Born in a manger. But one of the things that I make sure of is that we get accounts that's not going to be revealed to tour groups who come through here. That's what I tried to do. Reveal the information that normally would be passed by and not even mentioned to many of the Europeans, because it would conflict with their European Western world through their own European white supremacy thinks that everything started with them, or think that their whole European Christian concept started with them.
I want y'all to take a look at how massive this is. Look at him and look at this. This was done hundreds and hundreds of years ago. This is actually miraculous that they even still have this intact today, y'all. So this is the power of your ancestry and of your lineage. And there's no reason why you should turn away from it and call it blasphemous.
This is a Torah book. It's good to pick these little books up. And it's written by the Mormons. The Mormons who write these books. The Mormons. Okay. But the Mormons are heavily into Kemet. Now, this is a chapel. This chapel is where Haru was born, in a manger, at December the 25th.
Okay, Heru was born. Okay, Heru was born. They didn't say Jesus Christ, they said Heru.
Okay. Now, here's the book. Let me read it. You have the book? That's page 18. Here's the chapel right where you are. Is that the same chapel? Yeah. Okay, you see where I have yellow there, right? Okay, so let me read it. This court and chapel, from a special unit within the great temple, they were used for the celebration of the day of the child in his cradle, a festival commemorating the birth of Horus, which, coming as it did at the close of the Egyptian year, offers a curious resemblance to the Christian festival of Christmas. How could it be a curious resemblance when this predates European Christianity? What was the symbol of this temple right here? What zoomorphic form? The cow. Now, have you often wondered why the cow is always in the manger? This is Hathor right here with the cow's ears.
Okay, I want to point something out right here. You see this Pharaoh? You see how they have chiseled off the nose? They did this with a lot of these pharaohs in Egypt, ladies and gentlemen. They chiseled the noses because they know that people of African descent, melanated people, indigenous people, have larger, thicker noses, larger, thicker mouths. And so this was a representation of the people during that time. They did not want it to be revealed that these were melanated beings, people of African descent, because they were stealing these religious practices and this spirituality, and they wanted to whitewash it. Hence Cleopatra. Okay, Cleopatra was a melanated lady. So I want you to understand that they defiled these carvings right here. This is why you see the chiseling going on. You see the nose and the mouth is missing.
That looked over Haru in his birth at December the 25th. Here you see a pictorial version of their painting of the European Jesus wrapped up like the mummy that was called the Carissing, that we'll get into in the lecture series, showing you right here, why is it a cow? No one had never asked, why is the cow in the manger? Because the cow was Haru. And when Haru was born in the manger, this was his surrogate mother, the cow. That the cow symbolically plays the surrogate mother over the European pictorial versions of the Bible that we have right here. So again, you can see where it all came from. I know this is hard for some folks, but you have come back to see it. Not one group, by the thousands who come here, is getting this like you're getting it. Just like you, I came here and the ancestors were speaking from these temples. Relieve us from religious persecution. Relieve us from the beast of the Western world. We are here for a total different reason that other people come back here. This is why we have to walk in the spirit of Ma'at. Leave Isfet behind, evil, and come and see the truth. Now you see the cow Haru over the king Horus that you see right here. That every king that was born, like Horus, born in this chapel right here. Put this in your own mental court of law. Let's see all the evidence. And once all the evidence is presented, we can see where European Western version of Christianity copied from this. And judge it for yourself. You've heard their side of the story? Take time out and hear your ancestors' side of the story. We're not saying for you to believe it, but just like the court of law of Ma'at, let's put it on the Makaru. Let's put it in the witness stand of truth, justice, and righteousness on the square. And we want to hear the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And then judge it in this middle court of law. Now, the surrogate mother is Heheru. Her symbol is a cow. Why the cow? Because she represented the great Mother Earth. Now let's.
All right, you all. And I'm going to also share with you another screen here. I want you to think about the 12 disciples. I also want you to think about the fact that that person that they represent as Jesus or Jesus is Caesar Borgia. Caesar Borgia, everyone knows he was a criminal, right? They needed someone to paint an image of who Jesus would be. So this guy found this other guy and said, oh, I'm going to use him. But Caesar Borgia, the one that they have hanging up in their dining rooms that they sell in the stores, was a criminal, you all. And if you don't believe me, go do your research on that. Now I'm going to share with you this tab right here. These are the 42 principles of Ma'at. We are very much familiar with, the thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Well, I want you to see where this stemmed from, right? And the 42 principles of Ma'at, which there are actually over 100 of them. As you can see, it says, I have not committed sin. Okay, I have not committed robbery with violence. I have not stolen. I have not slain men and women. I have not stolen grain. I have not purloined offerings. It says, I have not stolen the property of God. I have not uttered lies. I have not carried away food. I have not uttered curses. So that's why I said, do not speak curses over me, saying that you're going to, speak the blood of Jesus over me. I rebuke that. Okay. It says here, I have not committed adultery. I have made none to weep. That means you're not making other people cry by being mean to them. Okay. I have not eaten the heart. Okay. I have not attacked any man. It says, who cometh forth from the execution chamber? I am not a man of deceit. You're not deceitful. I have not stolen cultivated land. But we know that the land over here in North America has been stolen from beneath us, right? Also, I have not been an eavesdropper. I have not slandered anyone. I have not been angry without just cause. I have not debauched thy wife, the wife of any man. Debauched the wife of any man. Who cometh forth from the kept chamber? I have not debauched the wives of other men. So basically, when they say you're not supposed to lust over other people's wives, okay, I have not polluted myself. I have terrorized none. Okay, we know that we have been terrorized over here, melanated people. I have not transgressed the law. Remember, I will not transgress against men. Okay. I have not been angry. I have not shut my ears to the words of truth. A lot of people turn away from the words of truth because they can't handle the truth. They've done that already when they said they are going to turn away from the ancestors' word, when they say that they are going to continue to believe in this whitewashed religion. When they turn away, they are turning away from the truth. Okay. I have not shut my ears to the words of truth. I have not blasphemed. I am not a man of violence. I have not been a stirrer up of strife. I have not acted with undue haste. A lot of people are acting with undue haste when they want to sign out of the chat. I'm out. I can't listen to this. This is demonic, is what they're saying. They're saying that these, laws of Ma'at and all of this lineage from the ancestors, they are basically leaving with haste. Okay. I have not acted with undue haste. I have not pried into others' matters. I have not multiplied my words in speaking. I have wronged none. I have done no evil. I have not worked witchcraft against the king. I have never stopped the flow of water of a neighbor. I have never raised my voice. I have not cursed God. I have not acted with arrogance. Okay. And being arrogant is basically meaning that you think your way is right and everybody else is wrong. That's what Christianity teaches a lot of people. That's why they feel that their religion, their Jesus, their way of worshiping is the right way and everybody else is the wrong way. I have not stolen the bread of the gods. I have not carried away the kinfu cakes from the spirits of the dead. I have not snatched away the bread of the child, nor treated with contempt the God of my city. I have not slain the cattle belonging to the God. All right. So there is a lot of information that we have not been exposed to, you all. There's a lot of information out there that people refuse to look into. All right. And a lot of people don't want to hear this information because their ears are turned away from it. It doesn't make it any less true because people don't want to hear it. It just means that they are closed minded. All right. And I'm not going to force this on anybody. I am just sharing information. If you choose to listen, if you choose to want to know more, you can do your research. You can do that. But if you want to continue believing what has been indoctrinated into us for centuries, then keep going along with the slave masters and the oppressors narrative. That's all I can tell you. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. You all, this is why so many were in slavery for so long. Okay. That is one reason right there. Because, you know, when they had a chance to break free, they chose not to do such. Right. So at that point, you can't blame anyone but yourself. Right. You can't blame anybody else but yourself when, you know, information has been exposed and you turn away from it and due to your own arrogance. That's what that is. Y'all, really wish I could share my book with y'all, but it's on the other browser, and I don't think my other browser will come up for you all. So I will try to read some of this for you, and it might be boring, but I want y'all to actually be able to see it for yourselves. Okay. I've already read through this, so I pretty much know the premise of what the stolen legacy is about. But like once you actually get your eyes on it yourself and actually read through it, you'll understand exactly what Dr. Phil Valentine was talking about. They talk about Constantine in here and the Alexandrian school of doctrine. All right. So a lot of all of the things that has been introduced into religious practice and to our belief system was for rule, power, and control. All right. So please, I'm just asking you all for your own good to do your research and not just go by whatever a pastor on a pulpit tells you. All right. Because a lot of them don't even try to give you the real information. They talk about Yahweh. Yes, we heard about Yahweh. Yeshua. Yes, we heard about Yeshua. But where does this actually go back to? Where's the derivative? All right. So, like I said, do your own research. There's plenty of information out there at your disposal. It is no longer an excuse not to look into this stuff. All right, I'll come on video while I talk to y'all. It's no excuse not to do your research into this, right? And just because people are hypersensitive about it, just because people are very, I guess, you know, emotional about it, doesn't make it any less right. Doesn't negate the truth. Doesn't predate history. You don't predate history. I don't predate history. But our ancestors put these things there for a reason so that we do not forget from where we come from and where we derive, where these spiritual practices and systems that were put into place for us to understand them. But a lot of people don't want to do their own research, right? They want to go off of a book that's missing 26 chapters out of it, right? So you already heard him name the 26 chapters. You said the pastor was just a tool from master to programmers. Yes, indeed. You know, I didn't even realize that the Bible spoke of slavery until my sister pointed it out some years ago when I was taking college courses. I had to take, it was some type of Bible course, y'all. And I thought that was kind of weird to take in college. I started questioning a lot of things. And Ashra Kwesi talks about the whole derivative of woman coming from Adam's rib. He breaks that down too. He breaks down a lot of symbology that we see in the Bible today, this Christian Bible that has been fed to you, the King James version. A lot of that is broken down. So I would really implore you to do some research and don't just blindly follow a narrative that has been placed upon you by your oppressor, because this is where this comes from. And when you say that Christianity is a white religion, technically it is a white religion because it's been whitewashed, but it's been remixed from African spirituality that they did not understand, or that they did understand and they wanted to put their own spin and narrative on it for their own personal gain. All right. So let's be very clear about that. So the next time people want to come into my comment section and tell me about putting the blood of Jesus on me in the name of Jesus, I'm going to do this and that, I rebuke you. Okay. Because first of all, there was no letter J. And as a matter of fact, if you do your research, you would know that Shakespeare was commissioned to help write part of the Bible. Do your research on that too. We know that Shakespeare was a novelist and he was very clever in writing narratives, right? Because we had to actually study him in school. Everybody had to study him. So just go back and do your research. Be very careful with a lot of this stuff, y'all, because what is the one way that people can have control over you? If they have your mind, if they have your spiritual practice, and they control your education, they control you. So free yourself, liberate your mind if you choose to do so. If not, you're going to always stay in mental slavery. It's one thing to be free and not be mentally free. You can be physically free and still be mentally enslaved. And I see a lot of people today don't even recognize that they're still mentally thinking like a slave, y'all. And it's nothing to, I'm not trying to ridicule or criticize people, but I just want you to ask yourself, had we not been introduced into Christianity, had we not been introduced into this religious practice, how would we be today? Did anybody ever think of that? Or is it always been indoctrinated from the time that you were a child? So that's how I look at things, because I think that people innately know right from wrong. Inherently, you know when you're being mean to someone. You know when you're doing something that's not right, because most of us were born with a conscience, right? You have a sense of some type of spiritual awakening in you that tells you when you're doing something that is not right. This goes out of the parameter of your moral compass. And if you choose to ignore that, then that's your higher being, or the spiritual side of you speaking to yourself, right? So everybody's going to you know have to answer to the laws of the universe. Nobody can escape that. There's definitely karmic debt that people will incur being here, right? You can't escape it. Even if you think when you pass away you won't have to deal with it, people have past lives. Whether you understand that or not, this is not a lot of us being here for the first time. We've been here many times before. There are people that have old souls that have been here before, but you have people that have a very limited understanding of spirituality. So they are basically, you have to baby feed them. You have to tablespoon feed them, because they don't understand that. They don't understand that a lot of us have come back here for a reason, to live out a purpose for a reason, right? They don't even understand their purpose. They think their main purpose was to come here and look at that Bible and worship that Bible and worship the deities that have been put in front of them by their oppressor. And that's as far as it goes. And unfortunately, people die believing these lies. They die, believing a lie because they never dug for the truth. And so I feel like you can never stop learning. No one has it all figured out. I definitely don't have it all figured out, but I do know that just because they push a narrative to me doesn't mean that I have to actually eat the forbidden fruit that's been placed on my plate. I do know that. That's all I'm saying, y'all. Yeah, a lot of people get silenced. A lot of people get hypersensitive. They get offended. And for what reason, I don't know, because it's not my fault that, your oppressor and the slave master lied to you. That's not my fault, so don't get mad at the messenger. You shouldn't even be mad at the message. You should be actually happy that you are being made aware of this, so that now you can go and do your own research. You should be actually happy, because years ago, people didn't have this knowledge. And so many people have died believing these lies. you know. So that's how I would think about it. Let me see, did we listen to the Adam and Eve story? Well, we're going to listen to the Adam and Eve story so you can see where that derived from as well. Like I said, please be very careful whenever your oppressor is spoon feeding you religion. Why would you believe their narrative when they were the ones that put you into bondage, put your people into slavery, stole your land, lied to you, still have you under oppression, but you still defend their religion? You still fight tooth and nail to believe their indoctrination. That's a mental illness, y'all. That's what that is. And I hate to say it that way, but that's exactly what this is. It's mental illness at this point. And at this point, it is a choice to be mentally enslaved because there's too much information at our fingertips for us not to do this research.
Our African ancestors, brothers and sisters, saw the matrilineal system. Keep in mind that all the kings had to come through the line of the woman. Is that right? What man can say he didn't come from a woman? Please step forward so we can understand where you came from. So our ancestors had no problems understanding that divine principle of that sacred womb where we all came from. That was the basis and foundation of the goddess principle and the matrilineal system in Africa. And our ancestors saw, in order for the king to rule the throne, like you have Ursa Ra here, the goddess Sheshat. Here you see her in the tree of divine wisdom, giving the fruit of divine knowledge and wisdom in order for him to rule the throne. It had nothing to do with no tree of good and evil. The patriarchs who came from the north, the Hyksos and others, who had a misogynistic nature, a hatred towards the woman, could not conceive of a woman nor a goddess giving a man anything. And that story was corrupted. The tree of divine wisdom and divine life was corrupted into the tree of what? Because here we have that they created in their biblical stories and the opening of the pages in Genesis that there was Adam and Eve, is that right? And they were not to eat of the tree of what? Knowledge of what? Good and evil. Now, who was seduced by the serpent and ate from the tree? That's why, sisters, you got to watch when you hear that sound. But anyway, here we see that she was seduced to eat the fruit, and then she seduced who? Adam. Now, we are told that that's the reason for the world's sins of this first woman eating of the tree of good and evil, and that that's also not only the reason for the world's sins, but her monthly cycle is to remind her of that sin. This is what's taught in the church. Okay? Now, when sisters start jacking that preacher up, who's been equally spiritually enslaved himself, to tell that story, and that we were born in sin, there was no story whatsoever in the Kemetic Nile Valley that we were born in sin. So a few years ago, back in 1988, boy, time is fast. Seemed like I just got this yesterday. Brother and sister showed me. They said, "Hey, brother, Quasi, you see, there was a black Adam and Eve." Although they made a black Adam and Eve, that has nothing to do with our story. This is what we see the evolutionists and creationists fighting each other. And they know anthropological studies that black people were first, so they put a black Adam and Eve and gave Adam a jerry curl and gave Eve a weave. You know, they had to be looking good for each other back then, you know. But it had nothing to do with our story, brothers and sisters. Even though they make it black to make you accept it, this is not still an African story. The African story is the goddess Sheshat giving the fruit of divine life from the tree of divine life and wisdom in order for the king to rule the throne. And this goddess concept was corrupted throughout the whole African Nile Valley, and even in our spiritual subconscious, even today, where we are told that the sisters are the ones, the women are the ones for the world's sins. This is the demonization of women and the hatred of women. This is part of the sexism that you get in the theologians. Even in Paul, it says that women shouldn't even speak in the church. But I'm letting you know that is not the African spiritual way, brothers and sisters. We had a God and a goddess. That's a spiritual Ma'atian law that our ancestors saw. Okay? So let's understand that there was no rib, by the way, in the African creation story taken from the man to make the woman. That didn't exist. They were created simultaneously. So we did not have no story, but all of us got a navel where the umbilical cord was severed from our mothers, where we all came from. But until we get back to the true spirituality of understanding our divine balance of African men and African women, we'll forever be a victim in somebody else's racist theological story and the victimization of sisters where we cannot see our divine balance in the universe. Hotel. And you know, the story is corrupted anyway, because as they said, there was only Adam and Eve, and then they created a son named who? And Cain went out to the land of Nod and found what? They haven't been able to explain that story yet. And then the racist theologians will tell you that was the sub-Negroid race. No, African people had a great kingdom long before their Adam and Eve story that they created and corrupted from the goddess Aset and Asar from right here in Kemet, right here in Egypt where you are. These stories are told. This is a book in stone. That's why they carved endlessly so it cannot be revised. You see the ark already back there. How could the Ark of Covenant that the Jews say that Jehovah God is the portable God house and you got it right here? That they're carrying. And we are taught to go to Jerusalem and not to come back here to Kemet. We look at Jerusalem as being the Holy Land, not Kemet as being the Holy Land. This was the original Holy Land. This was the original Taneter land. I know that may be hard for some of us, but 400 years of indoctrination, you have to look at yourself as a victim. And we have been a victim. But we have continuous stories. So this is a book in stone. You can have a few minutes to take your pictures of the goddess Shishat and go back and tell the story. Show it to the preachers. Show it to the ministers. We want to get to the root of these stories, and you've come halfway around the world, back to the African Nile Valley, and witnessed where they've copied and manipulated these stories from you. We want to get to the root of the story, and the root of the story was no Eve, but it was in fact Shishak, giving divine knowledge and wisdom. See, the only story that we have when a story regurgitates up is what white folks put in our psyche. But now the real psychological warfare is going to take place now because you are here. You're witnessing on the temples now, Shishak and the tree of life and many other concepts that we have shown, and that's down in your psychic. So when you hear the Garden of Eden, what's going to trigger in your mind right back here? I saw Shishak. And there was nothing. That's what's going to trigger. That's what's going to activate. But if you have nothing down in your psychic to fight that, then you can only accept that which has been told to you.
All right. So if you enjoyed this, please, give the video a thumbs up. There is no reason why I would look to my divine ancestors and turn a blind eye to all of their great divinity, all of their spirituality. There's no reason why I would turn a blind eye to any of that, you all. And I think it's egregious that people would defile them and blaspheme them and such, saying that I speak the blood of Jesus over you and I rebuke that. You're basically rebuking your lineage, your ancestors, and African spirituality that's been actually stolen from you, remixed, twisted, and given back to you. That's what it is. And it's really sad that you have a lot of people that are going to reject the truth, but that's just what it is, because they're going to defend the slave master's religion no matter what. You had a lot of people that were on that plantation that even if they could have been freed, they would stay there and remain there because they are mentally shackled at this point. So whenever you're mentally shackled, you'll never be liberated in your mind. You're always going to be thinking how they want you to think. It's bad enough that they have already poison the minds of children in these school systems. It's already bad enough that they're still teaching the fake history of this land. It's already bad enough they still have the youth and our children partaking in these messed up holidays, basically feasting at a Thanksgiving table to the slaughtering of our ancestors. It's very sad that these demonic practices still take place. And yet you still have people in the chat, in the comment section, telling me that they are going to leave out of the chat. I'm going to pray for you and I speak the blood of Jesus over you. Why? For telling the truth? Do you hate yourself that much? Do you hate your lineage that much? You hate African spirituality that much, that you want to basically uphold your oppressor to that degree? that you would cause blasphemy to someone else. You're speaking curses over someone. So the same way that you claim you're such a devout Christian and you're walking in this faith, but yet you judge someone else for speaking truth. It makes no sense. It's hypocrisy. And this is why we see how the Bible starts to be contradictory, right? The Bible contradicts itself, and these people contradict themselves. Yes, people they didn't brainwash me, but yes, Jocelyn, we were for many generations brainwashed because we don't seek truth. We don't research. We don't read. We don't seek resources. There are documentaries. There are tours that you can take. You can actually go and see this stuff for yourself. But if you don't have any interest in it, then you can sit there in the church. You can sit there with all these indoctrination camps, because that's what these churches are, indoctrination camps, and let that pulpit pimping pastor take all your money and lie to you. You can do that. Because who has the most to gain in these churches? Like I said when I started this video, I don't see where the church has really done anything for society. And when I say society, I'm talking about melanated people as a whole. I don't see schools being built. I don't see hospitals being built. I don't see banks. I don't see financial institutions. I don't see anything that's going to help excel our society. But what I do see are a bunch of pastors living well with their wives and going out here collecting money from the people, telling us the same thing over and over and over again. What's good, Lonesome Dove? And then nothing is changing. If people were so powerful in the name of religion, then why are our people still the most oppressed financially? Why are we still financially disenfranchised as a whole? Why don't we own anything in this nation, but this is supposed to be our land? Why don't we have any control over politics, yet this is supposed to be our land that we said that they stole from us, just like they stole this religion? Because y'all uphold for this religion. And the only thing that y'all can hold on to is the religion that your slave master gave you, and you still aren't free. So people, like I said, they die to their death defending this nonsense, right? And you got to come out of it. If you don't want to free your mind, stop trying to oppress other people. Stop putting the youth and the children and feeding them these same lies. Because really, when you look at some of this stuff, it will actually have you, it's like a mental illness, y'all, reading some of this stuff, seeing some of these things that don't even make sense, y'all. Jesus turning wine into water, or turning water into wine. That is a form of magic. That is like metaphysics and quantum physics. But I bet your pastor is not going to teach you about that. When you talk about all this miraculous stuff that took place, that is a form of magic. And magic is not necessarily witchcraft, but yet witchcraft is in the Bible. Magic is in the Bible, but we can't talk about it. We can't speak about it. We can't speak about the Haitian Revolution. How were they able to get free in 1804? A lot of them practiced these things, but you have been told to turn away from it. This is embedded in your lineage, your ancestry, and your DNA, yet you turn away from it. Shame to you for turning your back on your ancestors, because they died. They died for you to try to get free, and you still turn your back on them, even in death. Even in death. I bet y'all gonna still sit at Thanksgiving, and I bet y'all are gonna feast to turkeys, not understanding you are feasting to the slaughtering of your ancestors. Yes, you are. I bet y'all are going to buy a whole spread for Thanksgiving. Y'all are going to prepare for it. You're going to cook for it, and you're still going to partake in the slave master's oppression and the spiritual ritualistic practices that they fed you, because you don't have your own beliefs anymore. You don't have your own holidays anymore. What holidays do you have that you celebrate of your own that the slave master did not give to you? And don't tell me Juneteenth, because if we really want to talk about that, y'all really weren't free for Juneteenth either, because most of the people that were physically free didn't even know they were free, and they are still mentally enslaved today. So don't even give me that BS. Y'all want to have a conversation? Let's have real conversations. But many people are not going to want to have these conversations. Some things you can no longer blame on the white people anymore, because you do the work for them. Hence the Willie Lynch letter. Don't make me pull that out, because I can definitely pull that up as well. People don't research and they don't read. You said Moses turning sticks into snakes. And see, and some of this language in the Bible was meant to be read figuratively and not literally, right? This is why you take linguistics and language arts. This is why people wrote poetry. Like I said, William Shakespeare was commissioned to help write the part of the Bible. But because people don't want to realize the truth and they don't want to dig and do research, they blindly believe what a pulpit pimping preacher tells them. You said none of that nonsense in my house. I'm just trying to help people free their minds, y'all, if they want to be free. But you can't, like they say, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. And I'm not gonna make anybody drink the water if they don't want to drink it. Let them, linger in the pastures of their slave master. That's perfectly fine. But for me and mine, you know how they say, for me and mine, we shall serve the Lord. Well, for me and mine, we shall be liberated in our minds, okay? Because I will not have any youth coming around me, none of my nephews. I am going to make sure I uphold this truth because I don't want them growing up being oppressed with this oppressive religious practices. I don't want them dealing with that. You said Feast of the Tabernacle Miles had his people pray to snake idol for healing. Lonesome Dove, what people fail to realize here is that a lot of these things that they say is witchcraft really helped people heal. Okay. A lot of this stuff, I'm sorry about this, y'all. A lot of these things that they say, oh, that's witchcraft. Oh, that's demonic. Oh, I don't deal with that. When you start talking about hoodoo and voodoo, there's a difference. Voodoo is actually using herbs of the earth, right? So you can have cinnamon and you can use cinnamon for prosperity. These are just natural things of the earth. There is nothing wrong with that if you're using it for your highest and greatest good. But because your white slave master came and said, this is evil, stay away from it. Because there was, when people say, oh, speak in tongues, shana na na na, the Haitians back in 1804, you remember that? They were able, whether you know it or not, they put muzzles on those people. You know why they put muzzles on those people? So they could not speak their spells. Words are spells. That's why they call it spelling words. So you don't even know that you speak curses over yourself sometimes when you say good morning. Mourning. Do you know slaves used to mourn in the morning because the slave master used to kill them at night? So when they woke up, they would say, good morning. You're mourning over the slave that died the night before. I don't say good morning. If you notice, I say good AM. I don't subscribe to that. Okay. So be careful, y'all. Weekend, WEAK and WEEK. There's a difference, right? Weekend. All right. And then a lot of our days of the week, which I don't even like saying weak because that means it's weak in strength, WEAK. But see, this is what they have done. They have stripped us of our native tongue. And now we speak this language called English, which really is a bastardized language, you all. It's a bastardized language speaking spells over ourselves. So there is power of the tongue. Yes, you said it's in the Bible. It is power of the tongue. And I'm going to get back to the power of the tongue because the Haitians actually were able to speak power. They were able to speak spells over the slave master and have the slave master to drop dead. This is why they put muzzles over them. So y'all want to tell me about spiritual practices, but you don't want to dig into your lineage, into the power of your ancestors. Because see, they know more of the truth about you than you know about yourself. So the things that they tell you to stay away from, your politicians, do you know the people that you call the Illuminati? Do you know the people that are like into like entertainment? The things that they took from you and told you to turn away from are the same things that they use to excel and propel themselves forward. But they also use it and put a satanic twist on it. But you didn't know that because you don't research. You've been told to stay away from these things. So anything that's meant to empower and uplift you, you've been told to stay away from it, right? Just like when they say, "Oh, stay away from those holistic doctors." You know, those holistic doctors that know how to heal you with natural herbs, natural remedies, but they banned it from the United States. Now you have to try to go and find these doctors, but they want to give you the white pharmaceutical westernized doctors with the white lab coats that experiment on you, and they don't actually heal you, but they just treat you so you can keep coming back and give them your money. Those doctors they want you to go to. So always listen to your white doctor, right? Because they're white is always right when it comes to religion. White is always right when it comes to Christianity. White is always right when it comes to Jesus. Y'all want to go back and forth with Jesus wasn't white. And I don't even care at this point. The point is, you need to ask yourself, where did this character derive from? Who gave it to you and who made it up? So we already went back with Ashra Kwesi, Dr. Phil Valentine. You can read Stolen Legacy, and there are so many other ways of research out there for you to find out where this comes from. But you don't want to do your research. You want to just believe what the oppressor gave you when you were indoctrinated through slavery. Many, many years ago, by the way. So now we have the internet at our disposal, all these digitalized ebooks and libraries, and nobody wants to read and do research. But we want to get mad. We want to get in the chat section, and I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. You're not rebuking me. You're rebuking yourself. You're rebuking your ancestors that came before you. That's who you're rebuking. And even though their lineage and their blood runs through your brain, your veins, you are the abomination at this point. And really, it is shameful, and I would be embarrassed to have you as a predecessor. That's really how I would look at it at this point. There's no way that I would gleefully sit at a Thanksgiving feast and eat, knowing that this is a ritualistic practice to the beheading, because that's what they did to my ancestors in order for them to take over this land and this territory. But y'all still do it every year. Oh, I don't believe in Thanksgiving. I just go around my family and we just eat. Well, what is it? What do you call that? Where is your practices? Where are your holidays? What did you come up with? Or do you just go with what the slave master gave you? That's why churches don't teach Matthew 17:21. Same reason why doctors don't give you the cure. Some doctors, not all. I understand that. I definitely understand that, y'all. But yeah, this is just, a little study to open your minds. If you're willing to expand your horizons, a lot of people are not, and that's certainly fine. Like I said, this is not to shove anything down anyone's throat. You don't have to come to the channel. You don't have to believe what I'm showing you. You can go and do your own research. That's why I said I'm just introducing you to information. Information is infinite. It doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop with me. It doesn't stop with Dr. Phil Valentine, Ashra Kwesi, or any of the people that wrote these books. This is infinite knowledge that we need to be in pursuit of. But if it just stops at the pulpit of this 501c church with these pulpit pimping pastors, then I feel sorry for you. Right. And I hope you are not bringing your younger generation into these lies of your oppressor. Right. I hope you're not still doing that, because I feel sorry for the youth and the children right now if they have to be indoctrinated into this world of lies as well. You said, how be it that this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting is found in Matthew. Okay. All of this research out here, y'all, and people do none of it. Yeah. But if you like the video, share, like, subscribe. It's all good. I just thought that we would have, evening church service since I was out today. You know what I was doing earlier. I didn't have time to do this earlier, but I think that these conversations are necessary. I think that these conversations are very much so needed, whether people want to embrace it or not. It needs to be stated and it needs to be put out there into the universe, right? Because the right ears are going to listen to it. The right minds are going to receive it. And the people that it's meant to touch, it will touch. You're welcome, Jocelyn. I just love learning. I love discovering things. I love expanding my mind. I love the fact that I don't have a closed mind. And I love the fact that my mother, does not have a closed mind. And I'm able to talk to her about these things, and she doesn't shun me for it. She listens to me. I'm just so grateful for that, because I know a lot of people, if you bring this up, they're going to like push you off. They're going to ridicule you. They're going to criticize you. They're going to make you feel like you can't even speak about it. But that's not what this channel is about. So if you have an opposing opinion, you're definitely welcome to share it. And what I'm not doing is I'm not judging you. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying that maybe you were tricked and didn't know it, right? Because a couple of things can be true at one time. You could be tricked and not know it. So when you want to tell me the greatest thing the devil ever did was pretend like he never existed, that is exactly what your oppressor did. You look at your oppressor, not understanding that he is the devil, right? What does the devil do? Trick you out of your land, trick you out of your spirituality, trick you out of your native tongue, trick you away from your family, trick you out of everything. And what are you doing? You're left with their religion. And where has that gotten you? Please tell me how we've elevated as a people with this oppressor's religion that people practice. Where are we right now financially and politically? We're at the bottom of the totem pole. So there's a saying that says they basically tricked the melanated people to get down on their knees and close their eyes and pray. When the melanated people got down on their knees, closed their eyes and to pray, they opened their eyes and their land was gone, stolen from right under them. And y'all keep doing the same thing year after year after year. When does it end? When does it stop? You have to have an open mind, and you have to have a liberated mind. You cannot do that being in mental illness, because that's what I call it. Mental illness is believing everything that your oppressor has told you to believe, the education they give you, the health systems that they give you, their religious practices that they spoon fed to you. When is enough enough? When do you get tired of it? It's going to be up to you. You're the only one that can free yourself. And until you start believing, you said Jesus was Middle Eastern, not European. I know he wasn't. Stephen Hill, from what they're saying in the Bible, I'm not saying that Jesus was Middle Eastern. I'm not even arguing over the character Jesus that they gave you. What I am saying, because I really don't care at this point, I know that this character is Middle Eastern. But I am saying that people really have to wake up and liberate their minds. I don't care if he was African. I don't care if he was European. I don't care if he was Middle Eastern or Asian at this point. It really doesn't even matter to me. That is not the point that I'm making. But I understand what you're saying based on this book that they gave you and this character that they portrayed for you. This person that they described is Middle Eastern. I get that. I get it. So thank you very much for pointing that out. They are everything that they say the devil, yes. So be very careful. Be very careful. And I'm not going back and forth about Jesus either, okay? Because I just showed you and I just played for you where they got the Jesus character from. And y'all are still arguing about his ethnicity, like y'all don't understand and don't get it. So that's what I'm saying. It's like you talk and people's ears are still closed. Y'all, I'm not going back and forth. Yes, Caesar Borgia. Right. I understand that was a painting that they did of the perceived Jesus, and that really wasn't the Jesus that they're talking about. But y'all, it's when you really think about people that have to lie and pillage and do all these things and make up stuff, how much of it do you want to keep digesting? Or do you really want to be free from this? Do you really want to be free and get to the bottom of the truth? Or do you want to keep going back and forth with the narrative that they have given you? The term Middle Eastern was coined in 1850. It is a made-up term and region. Well, you know what Middle Eastern I'm talking about. Just like black was coined in the 1700s, which is why I don't subscribe to it, Jasmine Fly. That was coming from other people, and we know why they came up with that terminology. Just like African American, that I don't subscribe to, Jasmine Fly. So I get what you're saying. And we know that they have implemented these things and they have come up with their own titles. But my point is, when do you start assuming your own identity? When do you start assuming your own narrative? When do you start assuming your own history? When do you start assuming the things about you that you need to identify with for yourself? And people think that that's being arrogant because, oh, you're worshiping yourself like a goddess or a god. Aren't you made in the image of your creator? Isn't your creator supposedly a god or a goddess? Oh, that's wrong to think that way. We need to idol worship Jesus and whatever deities they tell us. Who told us to do this? Oh, it's in the Bible that they gave us. You see what I'm saying? So the mental illness is still there, right? It's mental insanity is what I'm saying. You said we are gods. You said, am I Korean? No, I'm not Korean. No, I don't think I'm Korean. I don't think so at all. You said we are gods. Yeah, I believe that we have some type of divinity from our creator, because why are we the only ones walking the globe that we know of right now on this earth that can do the things that we do? We have dominion over the animals, right? We put animals in zoos, animals in cages. We freely roam this earth, so there has to be something supreme that brought us into existence. We have the power to talk, to think, to rationalize. We do all these powerful things we create. We are like dominant over all the animals, in my opinion, anyway. We creatively have been able to dominate over every animal out there. And yet, and still, when it comes to other basic, simple things, we are very ignorant. Like, I feel that it's crazy that we have to pay for a way of life to live. And every other creature on the planet gets to live for free. But humans have to pay. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't to me. But we're supposed to be the most intelligent species on the planet. Very ironic. You said, BGAB, you are a goddess. Thank you so much for that. All I'm saying is open your minds. That's it. Just speculate a little bit, just research and dig a little bit, and just sometimes just sit there and think and ask the questions that people don't ask, that they don't have answers to. Ask questions that a lot of people don't ask, right? And just really contemplate these things. Because, I mean, when you sit in silence, sometimes that's what you really need. You don't need somebody telling you how to think and what to think all the time. We've been going through that since grade school, when we had a teacher telling us how to think, right? We don't need people to keep telling us how to think. This is why we have a brain, to think for ourselves, y'all. You said your point is the Messiah's identity is shifted to Middle Eastern for the Pilates of Europeans. It is as false as the name Jesus. I do not acknowledge either term, sister. Okay, Jasmine Fly, I understand. God made us in God's image and likeness, and we have dominion over the creatures of the earth. But here's the thing. The Bible says, let us make man in our image. That is plural, lonesome dove. So who is this one God that they're speaking of? If it said, let us, then who is the us? Make man in our. Who is the our? People don't talk about that. Back in the day, people used to worship the sun god. And even in African spirituality, they used to worship the goddess of the seas, Yemaya, and Oshun, goddess of the seas, goddess of the waters. Right? They're a sun god, and we know that the sun gives us everlasting life. Because without the sun, we would not exist. Yet they have us ignoring the sun that shines upon us and gives us everything we need. It's just very interesting how a lot of this stuff has been remixed and twisted. And I just really think a lot of stuff we need to think about before we blindly go believing it, because we can really do ourselves harm when we do stuff like that, y'all. You said God, capital G, is the most high, the other one, little g. I mean, it's all in what your belief system is. I personally believe we have more than one creator. I believe that there could have been multiple creators, because if we're going off of this Bible that people subscribe to, it's multiple and it's plural. So who is this, great creator or creators that made all of this? And it didn't happen by evolution. We didn't evolve from monkeys, y'all. So this narrative that they're teaching us in college, because when I was in college, they taught us this dumb stuff that we evolved from monkeys. There was what? Homo erectus, Homo sapien. There were Neanderthals, all of this stuff, Bigfoot and all of that, right? They're telling us through evolution, we evolved from monkeys, which we know clearly is not true. If that were the case, then my cats could turn into dogs, right? Why don't they turn into a bobcat one day? And they keep having kittens, and why don't their kittens reproduce, procreate, and turn into a tiger? It sounds stupid. And then the Big Bang Theory, they gave us that one, right? I know that there's a divine spiritual being or beings that created all of this. You said Satan was the most, when they was talking about Job in the book of Job, Satan was the most, was with the Most High. So allegedly Satan was an angel and that fell from the heavens. Yeah, I heard about all of that. You said that's their ancestors. You say you think the Bible makes sense to you? Well, good. And people will do mental gymnastics to make the Bible make sense to them as well. People will do mental gymnastics to make the religion make sense to them. And that's what I'm saying about mental insanity. Instead of looking at it from a logical perspective and seeing it from what it is. Because like I said, some of the Bible was meant to be read in a figurative way, like a poem, and some of it was meant to just kind of tell you how to operate in life. But I think when people have a misconception of what they're reading and it gets passed down, this is why we have an alternative understanding of these things, y'all. So that's why I said, think for yourself. It's nothing wrong with using your own brain. That's why the Creator gave you a brain. So you can use it to think for yourself. It's nothing wrong with that. And you can question stuff. Why do they tell you, oh, you shouldn't question God? That's not questioning God. That's questioning what they told you about God, right? Because nobody really can tell you how God operates in your life. You are the one that determines how God operates in your life. Not everybody else, not your pastor, not your parents, not anybody. You have that relationship with whomever you believe in, right? That's why you always hear me talk about spirits, angels, and ancestors, because I do understand that everything right now that we're going through, the reason why we're here is spiritual. We came into this world through it was through I call it spiritual conception, right? Because we had to come from somewhere before we entered this earthly realm. Our spirits came from somewhere. So right now we're on earth, but when we transition out of these bodies, where are we going to? You think you're going to heaven? You think you're going to hell? You believe in that? Because if you're going to burn in hell, how are you going to feel it if you're no longer in your body? How are you going to feel it? You're going to burn in the pits of hell. Where are you going to go? And this paradise that they made up, that I'm not going to say it's made up, but this heavenly paradise that somebody made up and said that you're going to be dwelling, and then you're going to just be worshiping God forever and sitting at the throne of Jesus and worshiping at his feet. If that's what you think is going to happen, who told you that, and how do they know it, and how do you know it? Or were you just told this by someone? Because we know that energy never dies, it transforms and it goes somewhere. And all of us, we just don't know where it goes, right? It's like we've been born back again here like babies. Our brains, like our memories, have been erased. We came here again for a purpose, but we don't remember what happened in past lives. You can get a past life regression done too. And what you will see is that sometimes you'll meet people here in this lifetime that you met before in another lifetime. Okay. A lot of people don't understand that either. That's why when you meet people, sometimes it's almost like you've met them or you've known them before, and y'all have like this spiritual connection that you can't explain, because this stuff is very real. Okay. It gets very deep. They don't talk about the metaphysical part of what you're going through. They don't talk about the quantum physics of how these things work in your favor. When you really talk about reading the Bible, you need to really apply it to your life, like even the majestic part, even the magical parts. It's not just about the parts that they keep dwelling over and over and over in church, right? Everything is spiritual, y'all. And there's nothing wrong with practicing magic. There's nothing wrong with practicing voodoo. There's nothing wrong with practicing hoodoo. This is what your ancestors believed in back in the day. This is what they did to get themselves free from 1804 in Haiti. They spoke things into existence. This is why they put muzzles on them back in the day. Don't believe me, do your research. All right. That's why they didn't want them talking, because they knew they were that powerful that they could speak up a concoction and have those people to drop dead on the spot so these people could break free. They used a lot of hoodoo and they used voodoo to break free in 1804. They don't want you to practice these things because they know if you start practicing these things in your own affairs in your own life and you break free of their bondage, right? They don't want you to go back in your lineage and get your own spiritual practices. They want you to go off of whatever they spoon fed you. All right. Hoodoo is basically conjuring up energy. So the energy is really for your own prosperity. And basically, it's like a chant. And people use candle magic by way of doing this, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, right? Because it's the same thing you do when you pray. Same thing. But they have you believing that it's only one way to get what you want, and that's getting on your knees and praying and praying and praying to Jesus Christ, or praying and praying and praying to God, or praying and praying and praying about it, right? But there are other ways to get things. Just like when they talk about manifestations, what do you think if that's not magic? That's magical. I have manifested things that I didn't even realize I was manifesting, y'all. Like, I manifested a lot of things that are going on for me right now, and it's nothing wrong with it. When you have what do I have? A manifestation journal. So they tell you if you want something to come into fruition, speak it as if it is already happening, right? Well, what is that if that's not using words in the way of magic? They tell you to write it down, right? What if that is if it's not a magical way of manifesting? They tell you to um, act and to live as if it already is happening. That's a form of manifestation through way of magic, right? We are magical beings, y'all. That's what I'm trying to get through to you. We are magical beings. And this is the part that they keep leaving out because we're very connected with the universe. Do you understand that we have so many elements comprised within us? Gold, copper, all these things that come right here from this earth, that come from the universe, stardust, you all. We have a lot of things that we're comprised of. We are more special than what we know. And the DNA that resides in us that they told us was junk DNA, it's not junk DNA. It's just DNA that has not been awakened yet. It's just that they don't know the practice of it. They don't know. They haven't uncovered the real truth of it. So they tell us that it's junk. It's not junk DNA. And if you want to be technical, some of us have more strands in our DNA than others. I'm just going to leave it at that, and you can do your own research with it. I'm not a chemist, I'm not a scientist, but just go back and do some studying in biology. I love learning about the human body. I love learning about myself. There's nothing wrong with me knowing me. That's why the African proverb says, know thyself. But as long as they keep taking you away from knowing yourself, you're going to keep going outside of yourself and doing what? Being a victim, getting on your knees, not saying it's anything wrong with this, but getting on your knees, praying, hoping, wishing, and wanting, right? But like I said, as a whole, as a society, where have we gotten? Where are we right now with this 400 years of Christianity religion? Where have we gotten as a whole? You said everything comes from exploded stars. There's nothing that doesn't, says Dreaming Merc. You said, oh, eugenics. You said, eugenics. You said, we are stardust. Mm-hmm. BGAB, do we have a connection? Hell will be cast into the lake of fire. You said 2 Peter 3, heaven and hell will be thrown in the lake of fire. You said, do we know? Do they know? Good evening from Ohio. Hi, Art of War. 400 isn't like, you said 20,000 years. That's a long time, Dreaming. That's a long time. A very, very, very long time. And we also know that we're not in the time that they tell us we're in because they have switched the calendar around. We also know that with dealing with the zodiac signs, allegedly there's supposed to be a 13th zodiac sign as well. So a lot of things that we have been taught, it has been remixed. So we have to do our duty to go outside and do some research so that we can learn the truth about ourselves. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, y'all. A lot of things have been hidden from us. But trust me, like I said, if you really look back into history, these mystery systems that I was telling y'all about, that they stole out of Egypt, these people pillaged and saved it for themselves, and they do practice this stuff behind closed doors. So I remember I was watching this documentary about Hillary and Bill Clinton back in 2016, and Hillary Clinton used to go to Haiti a lot. Well, Bill Clinton slipped up one day, and they were like, well, where is Hillary Clinton? So Bill Clinton said, oh, I don't know if he used the term witches meeting, but she was in Haiti, but basically practicing some of those Haitian practices out there. Because Haiti is real big on voodoo and hoodoo and stuff like that. You said Haiti House of Levy. You said proof is nice. Yeah, monologic proof is nice. Like a 13th tribe, like a 13th month. So yeah, it's just so interesting that they take a lot of these things and use it for themselves and have you to turn away from it. So I'm not going to turn away, from my lineage, my heritage, and my ancestors, because I believe that, they did what they did for a reason, and that we were turned away from it for a reason, because people know how powerful it is. People know how powerful a lot of these things are. They just don't want you to know it. Yeah, but let me see. I've been on here for 2 hours now. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This was not to offend anyone, so I'm not trying to be offensive. You said Haiti has God's chosen in there. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I just want to open up the minds, if at all possible, to people to kind of think, beyond what have been fed to us. You said don't leave. Don't leave. I've been on here for 2 hours. What more do you want from me? Y'all, I gotta rest. But yeah, thank you so much for liking. Thank you so much for subscribing if you did subscribe. And hopefully I have sparked something in your mind to do a little bit of digging, a little bit of research. I know when I get off of here, I want to probably do some more digging and research into this, because I've always been in pursuit of knowledge. I love learning. I love learning about different things. I just find it so fascinating, y'all. I enjoy it. You said stir your minds by way of reminder. There you go. And plus, I need to wash my hair. That's another thing, y'all. I have to cleanse my scalp. And we know cleanliness is next to godliness, everybody. Cleanliness is next to godliness. So everybody out there, if you're practicing, if you have an altar, they always say to make sure your altar is in a clean environment, so that your spiritual angelic angels and your spirits and stuff can help you, but you need a clean space, because they don't like filth, they don't like clutter, and they don't like filth and dirty houses and stuff like that. So if you do take a spiritual bath, cleansing your scalp, cleansing your hair, is a good thing. Clean the whole bathroom floor, mop it, clean the mirror, clean everything down if you're doing like a spiritual bath, y'all. And you can definitely submerge your hair when you do these spiritual. You said you massage my scalp. I love to study with you. We're studying together right now, y'all. So I'm just, sharing information. You don't have to receive it, but I do think that our ancestors did these things for a reason. And I do think we should venerate our ancestors, because they really sacrificed a lot for us, y'all. We would be remiss to let their memories die in vain, practicing these satanic holidays that have been fed down, passed down to us. And then you're passing this on to generation after generation. We really got to do better, people. We got to do better. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. Continue to walk in your divinity, y'all. You said Lone is a creep. Why would you say that? Well, don't say that. That's not nice. And actually, I'm going to put you in timeout. Okay. All right, y'all. It's been an honor. Y'all are funny in the comment section. It's been an honor talking to you all. Thank you so much for listening, watching. And as always, continue to walk in your divinity, celebrate yourself, and you all stay blessed. I'm signing out, y'all. Until next time.